Somewhere in the folds of this planet, there are roads that were never meant to exist. Roads carved into cliffs so narrow that two vehicles cannot pass without one of them stopping to pray. Roads where the guardrail is a 2,000-foot drop and the only warning sign is a cross left behind by someone who didn't make it. For centuries, human beings have looked at the most impossible terrain on Earth and refused to accept that it was impossible. They built anyway. They climbed anyway. They carried goods, soldiers, and entire families across mountains that seemed designed to kill them. What you're about to see are 18 of the most terrifying passages ever created by human hands and human desperation. Some are ancient trade routes older than empires. Others are modern engineering marvels that still claim lives every single year. By the end of this journey, you will never look at a simple mountain road the same way again. North Yungas Road. In the Bolivian Andes, there is a road so infamous that locals simply call it the Road of Death. It drops from freezing mountain peaks above 15,000 feet down into the humid Amazon jungle, and along the way it narrows to barely 10 feet wide with no guardrails and a sheer drop of over 2,000 feet on one side. For decades, this single-lane dirt track was the only route connecting La Paz to the Yungas region, forcing buses, trucks, and cyclists to share a road built for one vehicle at a time. Thick fog rolls in without warning, rain turns the dirt into slick mud, and rock slides can appear around any blind corner. Locals developed an unusual rule of the road here. Descending vehicles must drive on the outside edge, closest to the abyss, so their drivers can judge the distance to the cliff. It is estimated that in the past, hundreds of people lost their lives on this stretch every year. Today, a safer bypass exists, but the old road still draws thrill-seeking cyclists chasing the same terrifying rush that once made this the deadliest road on the continent. If a road built from fear could survive a century, imagine what awaits in the mountains where fear was the only architect. Zojila Pass, high in the western Himalayas, connecting the Kashmir Valley to Ladakh, sits a pass so treacherous that entire convoys have vanished into its snowbanks. Zojila sits at over 11,000 feet, and for nearly half the year it is completely sealed off by avalanches and blizzards, cutting Ladakh off from the rest of the world. The narrow, unpaved track clings to the mountainside above the Indus Valley, with hairpin turns that leave barely enough space for a single truck. Drivers navigate through zero visibility during sudden snowstorms, while below them the road simply disappears into shadow. Historically, this pass was a vital military and trade corridor fought over by armies who understood that whoever controlled Zojila controlled access to Ladakh itself. Even now, army convoys and civilian trucks queue for hours waiting for a narrow weather window to attempt the crossing. Engineers are now blasting a tunnel straight through the mountain to end the danger forever, but for now, every crossing remains a gamble against the sky itself. And if this pass demands so much just to reach a valley, one mountain further east demands even more just to reach a monastery. Karakoram Highway. Stretching across the border of Pakistan and China, the Karakoram Highway is often called the eighth wonder of the world and also one of its deadliest construction projects. It threads through the Karakoram, Pamir, and Himalayan ranges simultaneously, climbing to over 15,000 feet at the Kunjarab Pass, making it one of the highest paved international roads on the planet. Landslides here are not rare events. They are a constant, ongoing threat, with entire sections of road buried or swept away almost every year. During its construction in the 20th century, workers battled falling rock, extreme altitude sickness, and unstable terrain, and it's believed that roughly one worker died for every kilometer of highway built. The road passes glaciers that creep slowly across the tarmac, rivers prone to sudden flash floods, and valleys so remote that rescue can take days to arrive. Local communities along the route depend entirely on this fragile ribbon of asphalt for food, medicine, and connection to the outside world. When a single storm can erase a road that caused so many lives to build, you begin to understand why some passes are measured not in miles, but in sacrifice. In China's Taihang Mountains, villagers grew tired of being trapped behind sheer cliffs with no way in or out except a narrow, dangerous stone staircase. So in the 1970s, a small group of local farmers picked up hammers and chisels and began carving a road directly through the solid rock of the mountain by hand. It took years of grueling labor, and several workers died during the excavation, but the result was the Guoliang Tunnel, a narrow passage blasted straight through the cliff face with irregular window-like openings looking straight down a sheer vertical drop. Today, tourists drive through this tunnel with the mountain wall on one side and open air on the other, the road barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass. There are no elaborate barriers, just rough rock and a drop that reminds every driver exactly how this road came to exist. What makes this pass extraordinary isn't just its danger, but the sheer human willpower behind it. An entire village choosing to reshape a mountain rather than remain isolated forever. If ordinary villagers could carve a road through solid stone, imagine what a nation's military once dared to build across an active war zone. Rohtang Pass in India's Himachal Pradesh has earned its name for a grim reason. In the local language, Rohtang roughly translates to a pile of corpses, a reference to the countless travelers who perished attempting to cross it in the past, sitting above 13,000 feet. The pass connects the Kulu Valley to the remote regions of Lahaul and Spiti, but its weather can shift from clear skies to a blinding blizzard within minutes. Sudden snowstorms have trapped and killed travelers with almost no warning, and the road itself is prone to landslides, glacial melt flooding, and dense fog that erases visibility entirely. For centuries, traders and pilgrims risked this crossing anyway because it was the only link to isolated mountain communities beyond. Today, it remains open only a few months each year, and even then, authorities limit the number of vehicles allowed to cross daily due to the fragile road conditions. Locals still speak of the ghosts of stranded travelers who never made it across in winters past. As dangerous as this crossing already sounds, further north lies a road where soldiers, not traders, paid the ultimate price simply trying to keep a nation supplied. Few roads on Earth combine altitude, distance, and sheer unpredictability quite like the Sichuan-Tibet Highway. Running for over 1,400 miles across some of the most rugged terrain in China, it crosses more than a dozen mountain passes, several exceeding 14,000 feet. While also plunging into deep river gorges along the way. Engineers who built this route in the 20th century faced earthquakes, landslides, and extreme weather changes almost daily. And it's believed thousands of construction workers lost their lives completing it. Even now, the highway is notorious for sudden rockfalls that can bury sections of road without warning. And drivers frequently encounter thick cloud cover that reduces visibility to almost nothing along blind mountain curves. The region sits on an active seismic zone, meaning tremors can trigger landslides at any moment, turning a routine drive into a life-threatening event in seconds. Despite the danger, the highway remains a vital lifeline connecting remote Tibetan communities to markets, hospitals, and the rest of China. It's a road that reminds every traveler that some journeys are measured not just in miles, but in survival, and if distance and altitude combine to create danger here, one road in the Arctic combines isolation and cold in a way few humans could endure. In the remote wilderness of Alaska, the James Dalton Highway cuts nearly 400 miles through some of the most isolated terrain in North America, crossing the Arctic Circle before ending near the oil fields of Prudhoe Bay, built originally to service the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. This gravel highway offers almost no services, no gas stations, and no cell coverage for hundreds of miles at a stretch. Temperatures here can plunge to nearly 60 degrees below zero, freezing engines solid and turning simple mechanical failures into life-threatening emergencies. The road crosses the Adigun Pass, a steep, ice-covered mountain crossing where sudden whiteout conditions can leave truckers unable to see even the hood of their own vehicle. Wildlife, including grizzly bears and wolves, roam freely alongside the route, and a breakdown here can mean waiting hours, sometimes longer, for another vehicle to pass. Truckers who drive this route regularly are considered among the most skilled and fearless in the industry, hauling essential supplies to communities that would otherwise be completely cut off. Few roads test human endurance against pure isolation quite like this one. But while the Dalton Highway tests survival through cold and distance, one European mountain road was built purely to test the limits of engineering itself. Winding through the Italian Alps near the border with Switzerland, the Stelvio Pass is often celebrated as one of the greatest engineering achievements in mountain road construction and one of the most dangerous drives in Europe. The eastern approach alone contains 48 numbered hairpin turns stacked on top of each other up the mountainside, climbing to over 9,000 feet in elevation. Built in the 19th century under the Austrian Empire, the road was originally constructed to connect the Alpine region for military and trade purposes, and its steep switchbacks were considered nearly impossible for the technology of that era. Ice and snow can appear on the road even during summer months, and sudden alpine storms have caused fatal accidents among cyclists and motorists alike who underestimate the pass. Cyclists from around the world now treat conquering Stelvio as a badge of honor, though every year several riders suffer serious injuries navigating its relentless curves at high altitude. The road closes completely for several months each winter, when avalanches make travel utterly impossible. It stands today as proof that even in peacetime, mountains can still demand a price from those who dare to cross them. Yet nothing built for tourism compares to a mountain road constructed entirely for the machinery of war. High in Romania's Carpathian Mountains lies a road built not for travelers, but for tanks. Constructed in the 1970s under a communist dictatorship preparing for a feared Soviet invasion, the Trans-Fagarasan Highway was blasted through solid granite using enormous quantities of dynamite, connecting the regions of Transylvania and Wallachia across the mountains. Thousands of soldiers were assigned to the construction, and it's estimated that dozens died in explosions and rock slides during the brutal build. The finished road climbs to nearly 7,000 feet, twisting through tunnels, past a glacial lake, and along cliffs with no guardrails in many sections. Sudden fog can roll in within minutes, and the road remains closed by heavy snow for more than half the year, sometimes trapping unprepared travelers in freezing conditions. Wild bears are known to wander onto the roadway, especially near the tunnels, catching unsuspecting drivers off guard. What was once a symbol of military paranoia has since become celebrated as one of the most spectacular drives in the world, though the mountain has never fully forgiven those who forced their way through it. If a government could carve a road through granite for fear of war, one ancient trail was carved by fear of something else entirely: starvation and survival. In the South Island of New Zealand, gold once drove men to build a road that common sense said should never exist. Skipper's Canyon Road was carved by hand into the sheer cliff walls above the Shotover River during the gold rush of the 19th century, using nothing but picks, shovels, and sheer desperation. The road remains largely unpaved and unbelievably narrow even today, clinging to cliffs with drops of several hundred feet straight down to the river below and containing no guardrails along most of its length. Rental car companies in the region explicitly forbid customers from driving it. Insurance simply won't cover accidents that happen there. During its construction, workers faced landslides, falling rock, and the constant threat of the canyon walls simply giving way beneath them, and several lost their lives in the process. Even now, the road demands total concentration, as blind corners frequently reveal oncoming traffic with almost no room to pass safely. Locals still tell stories of miners who vanished into the canyon, swallowed either by the river or the mountain itself. It's a road born entirely from greed for gold, yet it created one of the most spellbinding and dangerous drives on Earth. From gold-driven desperation in the South Pacific, we travel next to a road shaped by an entirely different kind of desperation: the fight to survive Stalin's frozen empire. In the far northeast of Russia, there exists a road so soaked in tragedy that it earned the nickname the Road of Bones. Built during the era of Soviet forced labor camps, the Kolyma Highway was constructed largely by Gulag prisoners working in temperatures that regularly dropped below -50 degrees, with minimal equipment, clothing, or food. Historians believe that thousands of prisoners who died during construction were simply buried within the roadbed itself, giving the highway its haunting name. Stretching for well over 1,000 miles through Siberian wilderness, the road crosses isolated mountain terrain with almost no services, no cell signal, and no help for hundreds of miles at a time. Modern drivers face brutal cold that can freeze fuel lines solid, sudden blizzards that erase the road entirely, and long stretches where a single mechanical failure could become a matter of life and death. Wolves and other wildlife roam freely across sections of the route, adding another layer of danger to an already merciless journey. Even today, few roads on Earth carry such a heavy weight of human suffering baked directly into their foundations. If a road built from human tragedy can still challenge modern travelers, imagine a pass where nature alone, without any human cruelty at all, has claimed just as many lives. Connecting two remote regions of the Indian Himalayas, the Manali Highway crosses some of the highest motorable passes on Earth, including sections that soar above 16,000 feet into air so thin that altitude sickness becomes a genuine medical emergency for unprepared travelers. The road is only open for a few short months each year, buried under snow the rest of the time. And even during its open season, sudden storms can strand entire convoys of vehicles for days. Rivers crossing the road can swell without warning from glacial melt, sweeping away sections of unpaved track and stranding travelers on either side. Because of the remote location, medical help can be hours or even days away, meaning altitude sickness, hypothermia, or a simple vehicle breakdown can quickly become a fight for survival. Buddhist monasteries dot the landscape along the route, standing as some of the only signs of permanent human presence in this harsh, high-altitude world. Truck drivers who navigate this route regularly speak of driving for hours without seeing another living soul, completely alone against the mountain and the sky. It is one of the purest examples of a place where nature alone dictates who passes and who does not. And yet, even this brutal isolation pales in comparison to a fog-shrouded gorge where a single misstep has claimed climbers for centuries. Clinging to the sheer cliff face of Mount Hua in China, the Huashan Plank Walk is often called the most dangerous hiking trail in the world, and it isn't difficult to see why. The path consists of narrow wooden planks bolted directly into the vertical rock face, thousands of feet above the valley floor, with hikers required to clip onto a single safety cable using nothing more than a harness for protection. Legend holds that the path was originally created by monks seeking solitude for meditation, deliberately choosing a location so terrifying that few would ever follow them there. Whether or not that legend is entirely accurate, the danger is very real, since a slip, a snapped cable, or a moment of panic could easily be fatal. Strong winds regularly sweep across the exposed cliff face, and rain can make the wooden planks dangerously slick within moments. Despite the extreme risk, thousands of tourists attempt the walk every year, drawn by the thrill and the almost mythical reputation the trail has earned online. Rescue teams stationed nearby are a grim reminder that the mountain still occasionally collects a price from those who underestimate it. If devotion to solitude could inspire something this dangerous, one African mountain trail proves that danger can also come from creatures far more unpredictable than gravity. Deep within Uganda's Bwindi impenetrable forest, ancient mountain trails wind through some of the densest, most difficult terrain in Africa, home to nearly half of the world's remaining mountain gorillas. The name itself, impenetrable, was given by early explorers who found the tangled vegetation, steep, muddy slopes, and thick fog nearly impossible to navigate. Trekkers who venture into these mountains face slopes so steep and slick with mud that a single misstep can send someone tumbling through dense undergrowth for dozens of feet before stopping. There are no roads here, only narrow paths carved by wildlife and generations of local trackers who understand the forest's rhythms better than anyone alive. Venomous snakes, biting insects carrying disease, and the unpredictable nature of wild forest elephants add layers of danger beyond the terrain itself. Encountering a gorilla family up close is an extraordinary privilege, but it also requires absolute stillness and obedience, since a startled silverback weighing hundreds of pounds could cause serious harm in seconds. Guides who work here have spent their entire lives learning to read both the mountain and the animals that call it home. It is a landscape where the greatest danger doesn't come from cliffs or ice, but from creatures far more intelligent than the mountain itself. Not every dangerous mountain path threatens with wildlife or weather, though some threaten with pure dizzying exposure. In the fjord region of Norway, Trollstigen, meaning the troll's ladder, twists up a mountainside through 11 sharp hairpin bends, climbing alongside a roaring waterfall that plunges straight down the cliff beside the road. The pass sits at the heart of Norwegian folklore, with local legends claiming that trolls once roamed these mountains at night, turning to stone if caught by sunlight, a myth still celebrated in the region's name and imagery today. Beyond the legends, the real danger comes from the road's narrow width, steep gradients, and sudden weather shifts that can bring fog, rain, or even snow within minutes, even during summer. The pass closes completely for roughly 7 months each year due to heavy snowfall and avalanche risk, reopening only once crews clear the built-up ice and debris. Tour buses and motorcyclists navigate the tight bends carefully, aware that a single misjudged turn could send a vehicle over the edge toward the valley far below. Engineers who built the modern road faced enormous challenges blasting through solid rock while also protecting the waterfall and surrounding wilderness. Standing at the viewing platform above, visitors often describe a feeling of vertigo unlike anywhere else in Europe. If Norwegian trolls inspired centuries of local fear, one Taiwanese gorge inspired fear through forces far more physically real: falling rock and shifting earth. Carved through the marble cliffs of Taiwan's Taroko Gorge, this narrow mountain road runs alongside a churning river far below, tunneling directly through solid rock in several sections. The gorge itself was formed over millions of years by the river cutting through marble and limestone, creating cliff walls that rise dramatically on either side of the roadway. Taiwan sits on one of the most seismically active regions on Earth, meaning earthquakes here are frequent, and they regularly trigger rock slides that can bury sections of the road without warning. Typhoons sweep through the region as well, dumping intense rainfall that has, in past years, caused fatal landslides and flash flooding along the gorge. Despite the danger, ancient indigenous Truku communities have lived in these mountains for generations, developing an intimate understanding of the terrain long before modern roads existed. Engineers who built the current highway had to reinforce tunnels and cliffsides repeatedly after natural disasters, an ongoing battle against a mountain that refuses to remain still. Warning signs along the route remind drivers to remain alert at all times, since falling rock has claimed lives even on clear, sunny days. It's a place where breathtaking beauty and genuine danger exist within the very same view. Yet even Taroko's unstable cliffs cannot compare to a South American pass where altitude itself becomes the enemy. High in the Andes along the border between Argentina and Chile, a narrow mountain crossing has earned the grim nickname Paso de la Muerte, the Pass of Death, among truckers and travelers who dare to use it. Sitting at extreme altitude, the pass forces drivers to contend with oxygen levels so thin that altitude sickness can strike suddenly, impairing judgment at exactly the moment sharp focus matters most. Ice frequently forms across the unpaved surface even outside of winter, turning ordinary curves into unpredictable, frictionless traps for heavy vehicles. Sudden Andean windstorms can appear with almost no warning, strong enough to push smaller vehicles dangerously close to the unguarded edge. Local trucking companies share stories, some verified and some closer to legend, of drivers who simply never radioed back after attempting a winter crossing. Rescue operations in this remote stretch of the Andes can take considerable time to organize, leaving stranded travelers exposed to the extreme cold for hours. Despite modern GPS and satellite communication, many drivers still rely on decades of accumulated local knowledge passed down from experienced predecessors. It remains one of the least forgiving crossings in South America, a place where the mountain shows no mercy to hesitation. But of every dangerous pass on this list, one final crossing combines nearly every deadly element we've already witnessed into a single, unforgiving stretch of road. At the remote junction where the Karakoram, Pamir, and Hindu Kush mountain ranges collide, a series of connected frontier roads form what many mountaineers consider the single most punishing overland crossing left on Earth. Here, altitude exceeds 15,000 feet for extended stretches, oxygen grows dangerously thin, and temperatures can swing from scorching midday sun to brutal sub-zero cold within hours. The roads themselves are barely maintained, cut through loose scree and shifting glacial debris that can collapse beneath a vehicle's weight without warning. This region sits at a genuine geopolitical frontier, historically fought over by empires, and even today it remains sparsely patrolled and difficult for outside authorities to reach in an emergency. Avalanches, flash floods from melting glaciers, and sudden whiteout storms can strike with almost no warning, cutting off the only route for days or weeks at a time. Nomadic herders who cross this terrain seasonally rely on generations of inherited knowledge simply to survive, timing their movements around weather patterns modern forecasting still struggles to predict. Every element that made the previous 17 crossings dangerous, altitude, isolation, weather, unstable ground, human sacrifice, and sheer engineering defiance, converges here in a single, unforgiving landscape. It stands as a final humbling reminder that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, some parts of this planet will never fully bow to human ambition. From the frozen road of bones in Siberia to the hand-carved tunnel of Guoliang, from monks seeking solitude on a cliffside in China to villagers blasting granite for fear of war, these 18 passages tell us something deeper than simple statistics about altitude or danger. They tell us that human beings have never accepted a mountain's word as final. We have carved, blasted, climbed, and sacrificed our way across the most unforgiving terrain this planet has to offer, not because it was easy, but because on the other side of every impossible pass waited a family, a trade route, a monastery, or simply the stubborn human refusal to be stopped by stone and snow. These roads are scarred with tragedy, yes, but they are also monuments to resilience, proof that courage and desperation can move mountains even when they cannot move through them easily. The next time you cross a quiet bridge or drive down a paved highway without a second thought, remember that somewhere else on this earth, someone is inching along a cliff's edge in the fog, trusting nothing but a steering wheel and sheer will to get them home. If this journey across the world's most dangerous mountain passes left you in awe, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel because there are still countless hidden places on this planet waiting to be uncovered. Stay with us because the next impossible place we explore might be even more unbelievable than anything you've just seen.